Have our water absorbing crystals. And these are also kind of known as smelly jelly. But I think that's patented, and I might have gotten a letter from a lawyer here or there telling me not to call it that anymore. So we call them water absorbing crystals. These, there's all different ones. This works out best for like air fresheners in jars. So we typically put these in like a little 4-ounce jar. We see them 4-ounce, 8-ounce, whatever you have, with the air freshener lids on them. These are nice lids because they have the cardboard insert in them. So when you sell the product, it's completely sealed and airtight, ready to go. But when the customer is ready to use it, they'll just pop this cardboard out somehow.
I think it's easier said than done because I just tried to do it briefly and it didn't work out well.
Yeah. They just take something and poke this out. Drop that jar. Oh, okay. That's pretty airtight.
Yeah.
Now I know why these sell like crazy. Okay. So you would just remove the cardboard insert with a skewer or something sharp object that we don't have here. And then put the lid back on top and then it disperses. So what these do is over time, the water will absorb out and you'll just have little crystals left in the bottom. So you can refresh these, I'd say at least 1 time, sometimes 2 times. So when you sell them to your customer, they can refresh them. It's all absorbed. You just have the little beads. Tell them to fill it back up with water. It'll absorb again. And then they'll get a whole other set. This should last. Yeah. So this size container. Oh,
just ignore me over here. I'm fine.
This size container will probably last at least 15 to 20 days, you know, especially if it's open or whatever. We recommend putting it in like a warm place, a warm aerated place. So if you have a windowsill that gets warm and the breeze blows through, it's going to make the scent travel throughout your house and everything. So these are really easy to make. We have the recipe on our site for these too. These are magical. So it starts out with these little crystals. You can see how fine the crystals are, right? And it only takes, so this bag makes 2 to 3 gallons of,
what?
2 to 3 gallons. Yeah, these are like super absorbers, super water absorbers. So you can get 2 to 3 gallons of material out of this. Isn't that amazing? So they're kind of magical that way. We'll make them in this one. And since this is a water product, so we have the crystals, we have water, and we have coloring. The coloring that we're going to use is just our plain liquid soap dyes because that's a watercolor.
Okay. I didn't bring any.
Get that? Okay. I think they're right over there. Yeah, so we're going to use a water-based dye. We don't want to use an oil-based dye because it's not going to mix with the water. We have a majority of water in here. So we'll use a water-based coloring.
Can I use 2 colors?
You can, but it'll all mix together. So if you want to do 2 colors in a jar, like you could do 2 separate batches and then put them in the jar and stack them. I've seen a lot of people do that. So like they could do, you know, black and orange for Halloween.
So like we have autumn leaves here, so I was thinking like an orange and like a red and a yellow or something.
You could. So you could split up the batch, do 2 different colors. Could do the same scent. Sometimes you could do like scents together. So you could do, if you're doing candy cane, you could do red and white and that type of thing on 2 different batches. Once they're in the jar and stacked together, they don't migrate too much. Over time, they will migrate, obviously, because the water is absorbing out. But initially, you just want to do 1 scent, 1 color in the batch.
Cool.
Okay, so you need, for these, you need 2 teaspoons of crystals.
Small side.
Small side.
I feel like I'm going to drop things.
I don't want to hold that for you. 2 teaspoons of crystals, right? And then you're going to mix your candle dye, or not your candle dye. You're going to mix the soap dye with your warm water. So we want 12 ounces of warm water.
I don't know, I have 12 ounces.
I measured it out. We have 12
Oh,
ounces.
did you? Look at you.
And I recommend using warm water. You can use cold water too, but when you use warm water, it absorbs much faster, right? It kind of activates those beads and gets them to move much faster.
Do we need a bigger thing?
I think that we should not put those 2 teaspoons of crystals in yet. Just put them in a little beaker. There we go.
Okay.
So we'll put our water in here. Our 12 ounces. Okay. Now pick your dye. What are we? Autumn leaves.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean gold, obviously.
Well, I wanted to do orange, but I don't have one.
Yes,
We
that's
do
orange. Yeah. Okay. So we have our water. We're gonna mix our soap dye in with our water, and you can put you can put the liquid dye in later too, and just mix it in. But again, you might get some color variation. I feel like the color stays more uniform if you put it in with the water. Mix it in there.
Just one.
Stir. What you see is what you get on this dye. So candle, you know, when you make candles, the wax looks really dark, and then you make the candles, they cool and they're lighter. This is what you see is what you get. So if that's what you want, yeah.
Oh, I meant one, but I got two. That's fine.
Oh my gosh, I like that.
That's
color.
a nice color though.
Yeah.
That's a good autumn leaves
So
color.
that is 3 drops of our orange soap dye. That's a beautiful color.
Okay.
And then you can put the fragrance oil in there too. We'll add the beads last.
How much fragrance oil?
Fragrance oil. So in that recipe, you want to use 2 teaspoons of fragrance oil. So 2 teaspoons of crystals, 2 teaspoons of fragrance oil. And of course, the fragrance oil is not going to mix with the water. That would be weird. Oil and water
I'm trying to figure out how
never
to not
mix.
do this.
Yeah.
Do I need to go down?
Don't dump it. No.
There you go. Yeah, you can see
Yeah.
the separation
So
on there.
yeah, and that's no big deal. So when we put the crystals in there and they disperse, the oil's going to disperse in there, and the water's going to disperse in there too. So yeah, that does.
I love
really
autumn
good.
leaves.
All right. So
Is it time?
it's time. Add them.
All right. I'm gonna do it up here so that way we can do.
We need a table right there.
I know.
That would be
It'd be
awesome.
kind of in our way though if we were doing things.
All right.
Do I need to stir? What do I need to do?
Stir. So these take a little bit too. Take a little bit.
Oh, I feel
to
like you can
absorb.
already see them though.
Yeah, they're already absorbing. So that's the benefit of using warm water. And then if you find that, you know, you want more crystals in it, you can always add more crystals. Again, it takes about 24 hours for it to fully absorb.
So should I just set this down now?
You could. I mean, it's fun watching you stir it, but
It's kind of, it gets a little
pretty
heavy though.
yeah, those measuring cups are heavy.
Yeah.
Yeah, so again, yeah, they look like they're absorbing. So if you find you have too much water in there, if it's a little bit too aqueous, you can add more crystals in there and it will absorb.
Aqueous.
Aqueous, that's a big word.
That is a big word.
Usually I only speak in 2 syllables or more, or less. So if it's a bit watery, you can add more crystals to kind of soak up that more water. If it's not watery enough, like if you want it to be a little juicier, you can add more water to it. It'll absorb.
Is there any
so-
certain benefits of being more or less watery?
No, not really. So one thing that we do want to do though, after this is like mixed and cooled off a little bit, we do want to add a preservative, right? Because we use water. We just used regular bottled water. We used, you know, good old, I'm not going to advertise for them, spring water.
Spring water.
Yeah, good old spring water. You know, I mean, distilled water would be great. Tap water, I would filter it and stuff like that. But anytime you have water, there's, you know, the possibility that you could get mold, bacteria, yeast, fungus that you don't want on your finished product. But by just putting a preservative in there, you know, just, you know, simple half a teaspoon of preservative, that's going to keep it from getting all those yucky things in
Any
there.
certain preservative?
That's, I mean, that's open-ended. You could use what you want. Any type of full spectrum preservative. On our website, we put salt, which kind of, that's a preservative too. But I like using like any of our ones for soap better. So
Yeah.
salt will work, but it's not as effective.
I think that was
And-
like pre-soap type of thing.
Yeah, that was, we did that recipe like a jillion years ago
Yeah.
before we had all these awesome preservatives and stuff like that. So now there's a better way. Salt never really disperses in the water and everything. And I feel like it dries it out a bit too.
Yeah.
You'll get a little more time out of your air freshener by not using the salt. But yeah, any broad spectrum preservative will preserve it nicely.
I think you can already
See,
see
they're
how
absorbing?
it's getting like
it
gel.
looks
It's
like
a little
fish eggs,
jelly.
yeah.
Like,
It's gelatinous now.
now I think you're
It's
making
still
up words.
aqueous, but a lot of gelatinous too. These are fun. So again, you could do these up like you don't even have to add your fragrance oil. You could do up the batch of just put water in there in different colors, have different colors, and then offer different fragrances. A lot of people do up a full gallon, keep a gallon on hand, and then scent it?
So if you're at a craft show, you can
Mhm.
have people like custom make their own, essentially, if you have a bunch of
Yeah.
uncolored ones. Or
Oh
you
yeah,
ready
if
to
you
go?
had like
Like
little
a
buckets of each
jars,
color, they
yeah.
could take a scoop and kind of like sand art, only this,
Right.
and then you could
Kind of
send
make
it.
your own.
No,
Yeah.
that'd be fun.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the aroma beads too.
yeah, that would be fun.
Right?
That would be very fun. So yeah, absolutely.